The measure of someone's connection to the Force can be a tricky matter to determine. Some say it's entirely dependent on their midichlorian count. Others will say that anyone can reach godly heights of power with enough hard work and the correct training. But one thing is certain, some individuals in Star Wars are born with an uncanny amount of power in the Force. Not everyone has to be the chosen one to be destined for greatness. This is the case with beings such as Valkorion or Galen Marek. Both exhibited supernatural raw power in the Force when they were toddlers, but those two men actually got to see what their power was capable of, relish in the full potential of what they could achieve. But other beings who were destined for greatness fell just short of what some would say was their destiny. Whether this was due to their own actions or having their potential ripped away from them, missed potential in the Force is a plague, one which afflicted a great many Jedi and Sith. And in today's video, we're going to revisit the topic of missed potential, talk about who we believe are those with the most missed potential in all of the lore with 10 examples. This list may not be entirely conclusive, and so if you have an idea of who you believe had more wasted potential than someone else on the list, please comment them down below as we would love to hear from you. Also, if you haven't yet, consider subscribing and joining the archives, as we update the archives every single day with new Star Wars lore. And we have several holocrons that we've specifically set aside for you. So without further ado, let's begin with the characters in Star Wars with the most potential. The first is Ezra Bridger. We think that Ezra deserves a spot right here simply because of his Peridia nonsense. From the very beginning, Ezra displayed several inklings of greatness, being a rowdy and a rebellious youth. As a Jedi Padawan, he struggled the most with concentration and focus, but he soon found a connection with the living Force through the creatures that existed around him. Ezra could connect to wildlife in a way that we haven't really ever seen before from a Jedi, and it was all completely natural to him. This culminated in Ezra calling the attention of the mysterious Force-based creatures known as the Lothwolves and the Purgles to help him on several occasions. Ezra would even experience both sides of the Force, learning the ways of the Jedi from his master Kanan Jarrus, and then the basics of the dark side from training with the one who called himself Maul, as well as from the Malachor holocron. Because of this, Ezra Bridger progressed rapidly in his abilities from one year to the next. Ezra already had a very high potential, but it was his unorthodox training that made him grow so powerful so quickly. Ezra is not the definition of a perfect Jedi Knight, but he is certainly a powerful initiate. But now let's get into the real heavy hitters. Kar Vaster. The brother of Mace Windu had his own clan. As a boy, Kar Vaster was left for dead in the jungles of Ulic Qel. In order to survive, he was forced to embrace the living darkness of the jungle, to learn, to listen to it. He lost the ability to speak as a person would, instead only grunting, growling, and roaring as a wild beast, though he was able to convey the meanings of these noises telepathically. Despite being untrained, Kar Vaster was considered a one-man army, wielding twin vibro shields for weapons, and giving Windu a run for his credits in single combat. Kar Vaster was the most dangerous fighter on the entire planet of Ulic Qel, leading the Upland Liberation Front against both the Republic and the Separatists during the Clone War. Kar Vaster's raw potential in the Force allowed him to contend with the trained Jedi Master Mace Windu, as well as being mysteriously gifted in telepathy, almost on instinct. Although he was extremely accomplished as a fighter, Kar Vaster and his potential were ultimately wasted. In the book Shatterpoint, Mace Windu hypothesizes that Kar Vaster could have the potential of someone like Yoda, or even someone like Anakin. Of course, Windu didn't truly understand Anakin's real potential at this time, but he did know that he was one of the most powerful Jedi that has ever lived. It was a shame that Kar Vaster was never taken to the Jedi Order as a child, or even trained as a Dark Lord. He could have been one of the strongest Force wielders in history. But Kar Vaster was a rebel at heart. He never allied with anyone after he fed off of the darkness of Ulic Qel's jungle. The only person that Kar Vaster ever truly respected was Grandmaster Luke Skywalker, but even then, he refused to join the Jedi Order, desiring to continue his brutish freedom in the field. Kar Vaster was not born to be a student, but he was a born killer, and his potential in the Force was absolutely insane, but never honed to perfection. In fact, I would go as far to say that Kar Vaster has some of the most unrealized potential in all of the lore. But let's move on to another favorite, Ulic Qel-Droma. Ulic was the Revan of his era. He was extremely promising as a young Jedi, only to be corrupted by the Sith in a quest of vengeance. It's a tale as old as time. A Jedi believed that he could destroy the dark side if he learned how it worked, how it functioned. But the darkness ensnares, corrupts even the noblest of intent. And one poisoning later, Ulic Qel-Droma was a slave of the Sith. As an apprentice to Exar Kun, he would go on to wage war like no other against the Jedi, dodging his lover and brother across the stars. There's a chance that Ulic may be one of the greatest fighters that we have ever seen. He defeated the armored warrior Warb Null, who was trained in the Sith arts and lightsaber combat. He dominated Mandalore the Indomitable in a rigged match against him, and even stalemated Exar Kun in a duel, the only man in history to ever do so to the Dark Lord. The spirit of Mark Aragnos proclaimed Ulic and Exar as full Sith chosen ones, those that would bring back the golden age of the Sith Empire. But right as Ulic was approaching the apex of his power, Nomi's son Ryder would use the Force technique to blind him to the Force itself, blocking his ability to use it. But this may have been for the better, as Ulic was completely unstoppable at the time, and had just murdered his own brother. Without Ulic's help after, the Jedi would have never been able to defeat Exar Kun. But Ulic would spend the rest of his life as a wanderer without purpose, forever regretting his actions of darkness and terrorism, wishing that he could touch the Force one last time. The Force had mercy on him though because of his repentance, as he was allowed to pass on to the Netherworld, but only after he met his end in the most undignified way possible. Ulic Qel-Droma was shot by a blaster while his guard was down by some sniveling nobody. But Ulic was a tank of a warrior. Moving on, we have another tank, Asajj Opress. Another character whose potential is really underestimated by a lot of the fanbase. The brother of Maul and the representative of the Nightbrother clan of Dathomir, Asajj Ventress was selected as the finest specimen of his tribe, and then genetically modified by Night Sister magic. The Night Sisters attempted to create a sleeper agent for Ventress, an agent strong enough to kill Dooku. What resulted was a monster with immeasurable strength. Asajj Ventress may not have been the sharpest tool in the shed, but he was certainly the toughest hammer. Just starting out, he killed a Jedi Master and an apprentice with only a bladed weapon. He displayed enough power in the Force to take on Kenobi and Anakin together, and even Force choked both Ventress and Dooku at the same time, breaking both of their Force barriers. His physical might allowed him to punch off Plo Koon's mask, and kill the Jedi Master Adi Gallia, both of whom were council members. Savaj's physical strength coupled with his power in the Force made him the perfect Frankenstein's monster, the magnum opus of Mother Talzin. His greatest flaw came in his lack of refinement, as he never did learn proper control of either his Force abilities or in terms of the lightsaber either. He was a blunt instrument for nothing but raw destruction. Any kind of subtlety or finesse was lost on Asajj, which made him easy to outmaneuver if you knew who you were fighting. Obi-Wan, while dueling Maul, managed to kick in Savaj's knee and sever his left arm. Asajj swung his saber staff around as if it were a battle axe, missing the entire point of having a double-bladed weapon. He was strong, but he was slaughtered before even reaching close to his pinnacle by Sidious, who danced around Asajj as if he were just an object. Moving on, another character who had an insane amount of potential was Ventress. Born of a selective Night Sister breeding program, and trained as both a Jedi and a Sith initiate, there are few in the Clone Wars who can match the skill of Ventress. But she got the short end of her stick. She was sold into slavery when she was a toddler, witnessed constant abandonment. At a young age, Ventress would begin a warpath, dominating her homeworld and drawing the attention of one Count Dooku. Tyrannus trained her to be the perfect assassin, stringing her along with promises of becoming a fully formed Sith apprentice. His training was brutal, but the results were evident. Time and time again, Ventress fought both Obi-Wan and Anakin together. She was Dooku's most trusted confidant and weapon, even when he abused her. And soon, Sidious even grew wary of Ventress, her biggest claim to fame. Sidious knew her heritage came from Talzin, and even Palpatine was concerned of her growing power, so much so that he ordered her death. Ventress, just like Maul, had the best of both worlds, meshing Night Sister magic with the Sith arts to create a devastating combination. Ventress, though, was robbed of being with the Jedi, robbed of being with the Sith, robbed from being with the Night Sisters, and robbed of her potential. But nonetheless, Ventress's potential was extremely high. Our next pick will continue this Dathomir list, with Maul, someone whose true power in the Force was only revealed recently. Maul was the direct offspring of Mother Talzin, inheriting an insane potential from the Night Mother. He was then stolen and trained by Darth Sidious in the ways of the Sith, who broke him and then built him into a warrior. Sidious considered Maul to be little more than an animal, but the Zabrak was a ruthlessly efficient and a deadly killer. Sidious gave him a full Sith warrior's education, holding nothing back in the art of combat. teaching him how to harness and master his power internally rather than externally to augment his physicality. Darth Maul did not require the use of strange force abilities such as Force Lightning. Maul channeled his strength into his form, becoming a master of Force valor. At only 22 years old, Maul had killed several Jedi and murdered Jedi Master Qui-Gon Jinn, the student of Yoda and Dooku, and through sheer hatred and will alone, he survived being bisected and dropped down the reactor pit. In losing his legs though, both his body was cut in half, as well as his literal potential. Losing almost half of his midichlorians at once was detrimental, and while it was possible to overcome this, Maul was stopped each and every step. He could have restored his glory, but Sidious made every effort to impede his progress. We once theorized that Maul could have learned Night Sister magic from Talzin, as her spirit leads him back to greatness. We even think at his full extent that he would become something of a Sith warlock, perfecting the arts of magic and the dark side together, melding them into one. Darth Sidious feared what Maul would become if he were left to his own devices for too long. His ambition made him powerful and dangerous, and Palpatine ensured that he would never reach his potential. And now, at 4, we have Dooku. Anyone who frequents the archives knows that we truly love the Count, and he had one of the greatest potentials of his day, one that rivaled even the Chosen One. Master Thame of the Jedi Order, one of Dooku's other teachers, once said that he was the most talented Padawan that he had ever seen. This was something that Yoda often corroborated. The Grand Master thought very highly of Dooku's potential, and in the Attack of the Clones Illustrated Guide, it was stated that Dooku's power made him enigmatic to Yoda. In Yoda Dark Rendezvous, Yoda again commented in a High Council meeting that Dooku was the Jedi's strongest and its wisest student. Despite these comments being made after Dooku embraced the dark side, no council members objected to Yoda's claim, even Windu. Out of anybody, Yoda truly believed in Dooku the most. In Star Wars Insider 113, it mentions had Dooku remained a Jedi Master, he would have grown to the power to match Yoda. Dooku's potential was insane, but he cut it off at the knees when he joined the dark side. For a brief moment, he received a massive growth in power, allowing Dooku to even stalemate Yoda in a competition of force abilities and in lightsaber technique. Just like Maul, Sidious feared Dooku's potential, but on a new level. Because Dooku joined the dark side late in life though, the dark side degradation went into overdrive on his body. His physicality was breaking down rapidly over the course of the war, and by the time of the Battle of Coruscant, the Great Count was now an elderly man, feeling every day of his 83 years. Had Dooku remained in the light or joined the dark side earlier in life, he absolutely would have been far more powerful, maybe even coming close to his master. But now with number 3, let's go back in time and back into Legends continuity, exploring the son of the most powerful Sith that has ever lived, a man by the name of Thexan. Thexan was one of 2 twin sons of the Emperor Valkorion, the most powerful Sith that has ever lived, and of course his mother was Senya, a promising knight of Zakul and a powerful Force sensitive. All we know for sure is that when 2 powerful Force sensitives have children, the offspring are almost always exceptionally talented. But this was no marriage between a Jedi and a Sith. Valkorion was the immortal Emperor Vitiate, a man who gained the strength of 8,000 Sith Lords, draining each and every one of them and his planet of all of their Force energies. When Vitiate's spirit hadn't been fully in a body of Valkorion, he sired his sons, but the body of Valkorion was strong enough to handle Vitiate's spirit in the first place. And Thexan was a prodigy. While his brother Arcan fell behind in many areas, Thexan was the one who conquered every challenge, every training session. Thexan was better, and he excelled. He became a premier duelist who was never defeated until he dueled his own brother, and Thexan was selected by Valkorion to lead the Eternal Empire to glory, to destroy the Republic and the Sith. He and his brother slaughtered droves of Jedi and Sith. None could stand before them. But despite being the more gifted of the twins, Thexan would lose his life to his own brother when he stopped Arcan from attacking their father. In a blind fury, the unprepared Thexan could only defend himself momentarily before taking a critical strike to his midsection. Had he been prepared, Thexan would have defeated his brother here, but Thexan was holding back out of love, compassion, and he was completely caught off guard. And while Arcan would certainly go on to become a powerful emperor in his own right, Thexan was always the greater of the two of them, something that Valkorion always knew. But now at number 2, let's get into somebody with an insane amount of Force potential that really didn't even get anywhere close, and that is Leia Organa Solo. And now we have Leia, the direct daughter of Anakin Skywalker, the Jedi Chosen One. To say that Leia had less potential than Luke is a lie in the lore. In fact, Yoda had wanted to train Leia as a Jedi instead of Luke. Yoda believed that she was the ultimate contingency plan should Luke ever fail, and Yoda believed in his heart that Leia would have been a better Jedi. Leia, however, said that she never believed she would grow to the heights that her brother would, but that was because she doubted herself at every turn. She didn't have the proper vision that Luke had. Untrained and unknowing of her Force sensitivity, Leia summoned the physical strength to strangle a Hutt with a chain, something that should have been impossible. She also dueled another Hutt Beldorian, a dark Jedi, and even though he was out of practice, she still defeated him in single combat, despite the fact that he had decades of experience against her and was a talented Force sensitive. She survived a torture from Lord Vader, who invaded her mind, made her believe that she was in incredible pain. She was so powerful, because of Thrawn and the Dark Empire, she had to have all 3 of her children hidden away on a planet that even she didn't know the name of. And for the first 2 years of her twins' lives, she didn't get to be a part of it at all, trying to rebuild a new republic. In truth, Jedi training was always the last thing on Leia's list, and when she finally began training seriously, she saw how haunted her brother had become from the life and hardship of a Jedi Knight. This planted seeds of doubt in her mind, and her training to stagnate. In terms of power, Leia could be the most disappointing one on our entire list despite not being number 1. George Lucas said that Leia had the full potential of the Chosen One, just as Luke Skywalker did. So theoretically, Leia could have matched the power of the most powerful mortal in all of Star Wars lore. While many of the other characters on our list stopped growing in their journeys because they were stopped by an outside force, Leia abandoned the Jedi path completely. It makes sense from her own perspective of things, but it doesn't make it any less true or any less of a shame. Leia's power was absolutely astronomical and was never even close to realized. So now we have number 1. Who had the most potential in Star Wars that was unrealized? Well, number 1 is Anakin Skywalker. There was no escaping this. To this very day, we love discussing full potential Anakin. He was the chosen one of prophecy, meant to bring balance to the Force. The father of Mortis believed that it was Anakin's destiny to take his place as a master of balance. He may have had the power to obliterate Abeloth once she broke free. Anakin could have become a literal Force god unto the mythical Celestials of old. He was born from the Force itself, an answer to the gross tampering done by the Sith in Plagueis and Sidious. And yet, unlike Dooku, whose potential was ruined by turning to the dark side, Anakin as Vader would have had ultimate power in the galaxy. It would have been that awful. Except for his suit. His brutal injuries from Mustafar was the biggest travesty to ever happen to any Force-based character. He lost his remaining arm, his legs, and then his organs were left to burn in a river of fire. All the midichlorians were eradicated, and Vader was left with only 80% of the power of his master. But Sidious always believed that Vader could overcome his limit, stating that they were purely mental and emotional. But Vader's bitterness, his unwillingness to learn, this kept him back, kept him from his limits. He was never even able to get a better suit, as his own was literally designed to hinder him. From godlike heights to only 80% of the Emperor is the absolute craziest drop-off in Star Wars history. While Vader was no slouch in the slightest and was extremely powerful, nothing he did will ever compare to his full potential. And we all know it. The only thing stopping a full potential Anakin Skywalker are literal Force-based entities and anomalies. But friends, this was our list of 10 characters with the most wasted potential in Star Wars lore. But anyway friends, what are your thoughts on this? What are your thoughts on the potential in Star Wars, and those that squandered it, or had it stolen from them? On this list, which one do you believe the greatest tragedy is and waste of potential? A full potential Maul for me would have definitely been interesting. But as always my friends, thank you so much for stopping by the archives today, and may the Force be with you.